Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name is Nathaniel and I am joined yet again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. Very glad to be here. Very good to be a good friend still. Happy days. Yeah. How are you doing? You all good?
Yeah, I'm all good. For context, I've taken a bit of a look in for my intro and how positive I am about how good a friend Matt is to me, which is the case, but yeah, I've kind of just settled on that, haven't I?
Yeah. I'm just happy for it. It's always good to be someone's friend.
I heard you got another friend this week.
Yes, I did. So before we dive into this slight story time, now I'm going to preface this by saying the matter has since been resolved, and I've got a particular person to shout out for this. But I had a rather interesting experience this week with Fanatics. So for those of you who don't know, Fanatics, arguably, I would say one of the biggest sports retailers probably in the world. I don't think that's unfair to say. They
No.
make, God man, they sell merch for every league going, NFL, NHL, MLB, the Premier League, WWE, they sell it all. So I'd gone to order one of the new black Chicago alternate jerseys, which for those of you who haven't seen, they look absolutely unreal. They've released them as a part of the Centennial season. They played in them in the early 2000s, and they've brought them back, which is first and foremost I'm
So
super
clean.
happy with, because they just look so good. They look awesome. So I thought, well, I'm getting in on that. So I ordered my size 2XL. I'm a slightly bigger bloke. I ordered a 2XL number 91 Frank Nazar Chicago alternate jersey. I then get a text message from my wife saying, "Oh, you've had a parcel come from Fanatics today," whilst I'm at work. So I'm like, "Oh, awesome!" So I get home, I pick up the package, and I'm like, "This is a bit lighter than I was expecting." I open it. I open the package, and I do not have a black 2XL Chicago Blackhawks alternate jersey. I have instead been sent a aged 8 to 9 Philadelphia Eagles Jordan Mailata jersey. Not quite what I ordered. Couldn't have been further from it. And the weirdest thing was that I got this jersey that was sent through to me, and the labeling on it still said, it's a Chicago Blackhawks alternate jersey. I was like, okay, this is clearly some sort of major error. So I was a little bit, naturally, as I'm sure you can imagine, I was a little bit pissed. So I kind of went to Twitter to talk about it. Now, I will say, I've spoken to the nicest bloke in Indianapolis, Adrian. Shout out, Adrian. We've been able to get it resolved. We had quite an extensive phone call where, he kind of explained how sorry they were and everything, and that this kind of thing shouldn't be happening. And, I couldn't help but agree. But yeah, he was super, super nice. Look, these things do happen. It was just ultimately massively frustrating, especially because those Chicago black jerseys have now completely sold out. So I am going without it until they come back into stock at some point in the future. But we've been able to sort it all out and get everything sorted on my end and everything. So shout out to Adrian for getting that sorted. Really appreciate all of that. Weird experience. I mean, you couldn't help but laugh. We are currently at just under 400 streams for the podcast as a whole. When we hit 500 streams for the podcast as a whole to celebrate the 500 mark, I will post a picture to the Penalty Box Perspective Instagram of me attempting to wear this age 9 to 10 Jordan Mailata jersey. I will do my best to get it over my stupid large body. And
lad.
And I will post that. Up. So, not doing that until we get to 500 streams. So you've got to stream. You got to go out there and stream the podcast. So that is
I've got a couple
my
of things on this story. Right?
Yeah.
when you told me about this, I was absolutely howling. Like it was really funny, and for a couple of things, really. Obviously, it's just a funny situation in general. The fact that you opened this parcel up on essentially Black Friday, like the Amazon deal, and the Amazon game for Black Friday was the Philadelphia Eagles against the Chicago Bears. So for you to open up an Eagles jersey on the day they're playing on Black Friday, when you bought the jersey, like it just all it's almost like a too much of a conspiracy to be true. And then the other thing is as well, like, look, you've said double XL, whatever, but I don't know whether you know who Jordan Mailata is, but he's an offensive tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's potentially one of the biggest people in the bloody world. And the fact that you got a kid-sized jersey of a giant human, and you're gonna put it on.
I mean, I kind of called him out on Twitter. I was like, who is this guy? And then I looked up pictures of this guy and immediately regretted it because, you know, I mean, I'm 5'10". This guy could absolutely fold me into a Rubik's Cube and twist me around until, until I was a little shape. So, yeah, please, Jordan Mailata, don't destroy me, don't eat me, don't do anything like that. I'm very sorry for calling you out. And yeah, just a funny experience, but nice one, Fanatics, for getting it sorted on my end. I really appreciate it, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this story up on the podcast because it was very, very funny.
It was funny indeed. Oh dear. Right, after story time, shall we get into the story of the NHL season in the past week?
Yeah, it's been a fanatical week in the NHL. So let's get to it.
Oh, I should have led with that. That's my kind of humour right there. I'm rubbing off on you.
Don't rub off on me.
Oh, right. Another one who's had a bit of a week is the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Atlantic Division. A team who I think we both agreed are just waiting for the right moment for it all to click. And this week it has. They've shot to the top of the standings, put a gap between them and second place. They've played 4 games this week and won every single one of them, and pretty much every single one of them convincingly. So they led out the week with a 3-0 win against the Flyers. Then beat the Flames 5-1. Then sort of an away trip to Detroit, beat them 6-3, and then beat the Rangers in MSG 4-1. So many goals and points for a lot of their players. You could be reeling off them for days. But yeah, great week by the Lightning.
Yeah, absolutely. The Lightning have rubbed off on the entire league this week. Kucherov with 10 points in the
Sparks
4 games. Hagel with 6 goals and 2 assists as well. Darren Radish with a goal and 6 assists. Like, they've just been absolutely brilliant. Vasilevsky with his first shutout of the season in that game against the Flyers. And like you said, they've shot up to the top of the division, put a bit of breathing space between them and second place. Like we said, this was something that we potentially saw coming. We're just waiting for the right opportune moment, and they are delivering.
Absolutely, yeah. Like all the keepers, obviously Vasi and Johansson even coming in with a plus 900 save percentage against the Rangers. You got Kucherov sat on 32 points for the season now in 23 games, so he's coming into form nicely now. Obviously Hagel, Guntzel also in support of that at a point per game. So I think that this is it now. I think they've come to the top of the standings. I think they're going to be staying there for the rest of the year for me. I don't think they're going to be dropping down. Maybe they not win every single game every single week, but I think it's their division to lose now.
Completely agree.
Right, we'll move into more of the sort of the dogfight zone of this division then. In second place, up 2 spots from last week, is our 12th power ranked team, the Boston Bruins. They played 3 games this week against the Islanders, Rangers and Red Wings, and have won 2 and lost 1. So they did lose against the Rangers 6-2, but obviously they beat the Islanders 3-1 and then beat the Red Wings in a shootout. So close to the 3 points in 3, but not far off. But Lindholm with 4 assists, Geeky again, just scoring goals for fun. He doesn't like to pass the puck, he just tucks it away in the net constantly, 20 goals on the year. They've had a solid week, haven't they?
Geeky for Richard. It's going to happen. Yeah. The Boston Bruins have had a decent week, haven't they? And they've bounced back. They've moved up 2 places in the division. They're on 30 points for the season now. Yeah, good week for them. Jeremy Swayman again has kind of bounced back. He was a bit ropey earlier in the season. He's bounced back now. He had a 977 save percentage against the Islanders and a 923 against the Red Wings. So, he's looking real good. The only negative of that for me is I would love Spencer Knight to be the third goalie in that US Olympic team, and I think him and Swayman are going to go right to the wire for that. But yeah, they've done really well. You've got Pasternak up to 29 points in 25 games. Geeky's almost at a point per game as well. 20 goals and 6 assists on the season. So he's having a career year. They've got the Red Wings again coming up on the road, and then a couple of home games against the Blues and the Devils. So some more points available on offer for the Bruins there, and hopefully they can sort of solidify themselves into a playoff position as we roll on towards Christmas.
Yeah, I think they're a good team, not quite at Tampa Bay's level, but I think they're very solid moving forward. Moving to then the seventh ranked power.
Try again.
Bloody hell, Nathaniel. Try again. Wow, it's the 7th team in our power rankings. Round of applause.
There we go. We got it.
The Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, they played 3 games as well this week, had 1 in 2, and also just losing the 1. Beating the Mammoth 4-3, the Golden Knights 4-1 before losing big time 7-2 to the Colorado Avalanche. So this young team is still bouncing forward after a couple of sort of poor weeks. They're up 2 spots from 5th to 3rd now in this division. So they're still in it.
Yeah, this is a lot more like it, I think, from the Canadiens this week. They had a tricky road stint coming up this week, the Mammoth, the Golden Knights, and the Avalanche. To come away with 4 points on that week, especially after the couple of weeks that they've had, they'll be really happy with that. I mean, look, okay, they got absolutely waxed 7-2 by the Avalanche, but they're absolutely just running over the entire league this year. So good for a good bounce back week for them. Nice to get some good goaltending as well from Dobesh and Montembeau, especially in those victories against the Mammoth and the Golden Knights. Suzuki and Bolduc with 2 goals and 3 assists on the week. Cole Caulfield with a goal and 3 assists. Slavkovsky with a goal and 2 assists. So they're high end players putting up those points. So they've got Suzuki and Caulfield out at over a point per game this season. So looking good for them. They've got 4 games coming up in the next week. They've got a couple of home games against the Senators and the Jets before they go on the road to Toronto to face the Maple Leafs before coming back in the second day of a back-to-back at home against the Blues. So, yeah, again, it could be another decent week for Montreal. Obviously, they've got an interdivisional game there against the Sens that they'll definitely want to win. Little kind of update from that front as well. Mike Matheson has signed a 5-year deal at $6.5 million. I like that deal a lot. I think, when you saw a lot of defensemen going up there in the kind of 7.5, 8, even up as far as 9 million, I think Matheson at 6.5 for the next 5 years is good and just solidifies that defensive core a bit more.
Yeah, it's a great contract for Montreal. When you're looking at that team and all these young players, all probably wanting the big money for him to sign. For me, what is a sort of more of a cut price deal, I think that's a great piece of business, and really cements the position that the Canadiens are going to be a team to be sort of forced to be reckoned with moving forward. I think definitely on the up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're certainly kind of business as usual again this week for the Canadiens.
Yep. Now, the Berserker team in this division, the Ottawa Senators, they're 16th in our power rankings. They're down 1 spot to 4th this week. They're sat on 28 points. They've had a bit of a rough week this week. Obviously, a 4-game away trip. Obviously, got another away game against the Habs coming up as well. So, on the road, but they lost against the Kings, the Blues, and the Stars, but did beat the Golden Knights in a shootout. Sanderson with 2 goals and 3 assists. And for the most part, solid goaltending, but they've just come off at the wrong end of some results, I think, this week.
Yeah, they've barring that road game against the Stars where they lost 6-1, they've been in every game, obviously losing 2-1 to the Kings and 4-3 to the Blues. So they've been kind of in there or thereabouts. Positive news for Ottawa is that they've been. It sounds as though Brady Tkachuk's going to be back, kind of imminently.
He's back as playing, yeah.
Oh, is he back in the lineup? Is he? No, I was just I remember seeing earlier this week. So there we go, massive boost for Ottawa, and shout out to the rest of those Senators. We've kind of said this week after week is that the rest of that team has helped keep them in a relative kind of playoff contention spot in his absence. I think you could have seen them completely fall away, but they've managed to kind of keep battling on. So hopefully with his sort of reintroduction back into the team, obviously it might take him a couple of games to get going again, but they'll be really glad to have their captain back. So they wrap up their road trip tonight against the Montreal Canadiens before they return home to face the Rangers and the Blues. So that'll be a really good game against the Habs, and hopefully they can start to keep pushing in with Kachuk's return.
Yeah. So for me, they're a prime potential wildcard candidate. The way that obviously the divisions are shaping, etc., I kind of see them in the sort of anywhere between the third and sixth kind of placings in this division, depending on how things go. So, it's really up to them, and I think they'll be up and down, yo-yoing all year, will they, won't they? But yeah, bit of a down week this week, but I'm not particularly worried. I think they're an entertaining team to watch.
Yeah, absolutely, personally. Certainly. They could have had worse weeks like the next team we'll talk about.
Yeah, Grizzly, the Detroit Red Wings. It seems like they're up and down this division like a yo-yo. The biggest sort of up and down team there is. But yeah, they're down from top spot in this division down to fifth with 28 points. Played 4 games and lost every single one of them, albeit one was to the Bruins and they lost in a shootout there. But yeah, a 4-3 loss at Devils, 6-3 losses to the Predators. Ouch, and the Lightning. Yeah, I see Dylan Larkin coming in with 2 goals, 3 assists. Lucas Raymond with a goal and 3 assists. They just had a really poor week, haven't they?
Yeah, and look, the NHL is arguably one of the weirdest leagues in sports in the fact that any team can beat any team on any given night. And I think as a result, you run into a few teams, and we've already seen a few this season, who really struggle with consistency and putting together sort of a healthy run of games. And look, every team runs into a bit of a losing streak. I've witnessed that myself with Chicago the last week or so. But
last 10 years.
Yeah, sorry. Cheers for that. But yeah, this has been a rough one for Detroit this week, and yeah, they've shipped a lot of goals. Their goaltending just hasn't been there from Talbot and Gibson, and again, they're 2 goaltenders who have struggled on their consistency this year as well. You're still getting production from Larkin and Raymond, and again, they scored 11 goals in those 4 games. So they are still finding a way to put the puck in the net, which, as we always say, is arguably the hardest thing to do in hockey. So they just need a bit more support on that defensive end. But look, they've integrated a lot of young players into their team this year, so there is going to be some inconsistency and some losing streaks in there. But I have no doubt we'll see them kind of slide up and down this division. Kind of over the course of the year, but a rough one for sure for Detroit.
Yeah, they're a team who've been on the outskirts looking in for the longest time and almost kind of slipping into the sort of Sabre territory. But then this year they've sort of kick-started it really well. They've been up there and it's been, oh, right, they're back. Let's go. Let's watch them. The original 16, let's go. But then they keep sort of slipping down and threatening to go back into the background again. So hopefully they can sort of keep it going. It's like a car that's kind of ticking over but not quite firing up necessarily, if that makes sense. You've got so much promise, you just need to go, I think, to put it all together.
Definitely. Yeah, 100%.
Right, so we're moving into, believe it or not, sort of the dregs into the bottom of this division now. It seems like there's a bit of a gap for me between the top five teams and these three. And unfortunately, the Buffalo Sabres have gone up a few spots from a few weeks ago now and now sat in sixth place in this division. Our 31st power ranked team, but yeah, they're putting some results together. But yeah, they've lost two games and beat my Wild in a shootout. What a piss annoying game that was. And then smashed the Jets 5-1 last night. So yeah, what a week for the Sabres.
Weird. Yeah, really, really weird team. We've seen already this year, they are more or less sort of night in, night out, quite a poor team. But then they just have it in them to go out there and absolutely batter someone. Now, my brother's a Jets fan, and I was messaging him yesterday saying that they've obviously the Jets have been in a bit of a struggle this recently since Hellebuck's gone down, and saying to him, well, they're playing the Sabres tonight. A good opportunity for them to get back in the win column. Obviously, that didn't happen. They pumped the Jets 5-1. So yeah, but getting shut out 5-0 to the Devils, not good. But then they'll back it up afterwards with a shootout victory against the Wild. So they are like such a strange team. I think that Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson especially are kind of carrying this team at the moment. Tuck is, in terms of the top five scorers in the team, Tuck's the only one with a positive plus minus. Yeah, he's having a really good year. And yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Tuck might be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. I think he might be due a new contract. But yeah, it's been a just an up and down week for the Sabres.
Yeah, for me, I think they've played themselves up the division more because other teams are struggling around them rather than anything else. I still don't think they're relevant. I'm not going to pretend they are. It's just maybe I'm just pissy because they beat my Wild, but stopped our winning streak. But yeah.
Yeah. So Alex Tuck currently in the final year of his $4.75 million dollar contract, which, I mean, for the player that you get at that kind of money at the moment, is an absolute steal. So he'll be someone looking for a new deal. Will that be in Buffalo? Will that be elsewhere? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I reckon he goes.
Mm.
He's
I
doing
I
well. He'll go somewhere else.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Right. Moving down then to the seventh place team in this division, the Florida Panthers. Also on 25 points. They played 3 games this week. They smashed the Predators 8-3 before a couple of losing games at home against the Flyers and the Flames. So they sat at a record of 12, 11, and 1, -2 on the season so far. Obviously, Verhaeghe coming in with 2 goals and 4 assists in the 3 games, so he's had a pretty good week. But Bobrovsky hasn't really had that good a week either, and they're still floundering a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. They're just struggling. Look, they, even just in watching the games and watching the condensed games afterwards, the team looks tired. We're not even at Christmas yet, and they look exhausted. And they just don't have it this year. But again, as I say each week, they get a complete free pass from me. For 2 reasons. One, because they've just won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and I have no problem with how bad Florida want to be this year, because Chicago have their first-round pick in this year's draft. So I'm absolutely fine with however bad the Florida Panthers want to be. It was a great win against the Predators on the road. Don't get me wrong, and Verhaeghe's had a great week in that regard. But yeah, it's a struggle of a season for Florida, and I think they're just going to have to kind of get from A to B, get to the end of the season, and just see what happens. But hey, they get Tkachuk back, in and around sort of the new year. I think they'll be, I think they'll see a little bit of an uptick. But again, I just think this whole team looks knackered.
Yeah. The other thing to look on as well is nobody will keep an eye on how sort of poor they're doing this year when the next team are below them in the standings. because the Toronto Maple Leafs are still at the bottom of the Atlantic Division. Oh dear. So they are on 25 points, so they're not separated far from the rest, but they've had the 3-3 week. So they're beating the Blue Jackets 2-1 in overtime, beating the Penguins 7-2 in the most recent game, but lost a game in the middle to the Capitals 4-2. Excuse me, it's not a 3-3 because obviously they beat the Blue Jackets in overtime. So ignore me from that. But the principle remains they're struggling still. They're still at the bottom of this division, and people are going to be making noise about it.
Yeah, Toronto fans are some of the most loud fans in the league, and rightly so. It's an original six storied franchise. Obviously, it's a massive market. They're really, really struggling this season, and you look, they're already 9 points back of the division leaders. So it's going to be a real struggle for them. They're they're only 4 points back from third. So they could if they can figure it out in the same way that Tampa have and start putting some wins together. I mean, that road victory against the Penguins was a great result. But they're another team who are just really, really struggling to make it work, and they're having such good production from Nylander, Tavares, and Nyes this year. They're all at onwards of a point per game, but their goaltending hasn't quite been there. Wall's looked decent since he's come back, but yeah, it's been a rough season for Stolars, and when they've played Primo, he's kind of struggled a bit as well, and only one victory on the season for Hilderby coming in that game against the Penguins.
Yeah, I think Wall coming back is the potential ace in their sleeve. He has done well since they've come back, and they haven't quite got the results with him necessarily yet. But obviously Matthews has been out as well, so I'm not going to rule them out and say they're not going to make a comeback in this division. But it's just an interesting storyline when they're rooted to the bottom of the Atlantic, and everyone expects them to be Stanley Cup champions every year, don't they? That's what the fans expect for them. So we'll see how they get on. It's still a wait and see, I think, for the Maple Leafs side.
100%.
Right, and with that, we'll move out west to the Pacific Division. And thankfully for my fandom, the still the first place team in this division is the Anaheim Ducks. The eighth in our power rankings. They're sat on 33 points with a record of 16-9-1 with a plus 12. They played 4 games this week. Mixture of results. They've lost 2 and won 2. Obviously, the beat Kings in the shootout. The Blues 4-1. But lost 5-4 to the Canucks in a close game, and then lost to your Blackhawks as well, 5-3. But yeah, I think the Ducks are steamrolling on. I think they've proved themselves already now, and I can't wait to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that we will see the Ducks in the playoffs come the end of the year. I just think they've got so many players capable of putting up really high production. Obviously, Leo Carlson's having an unbelievable year. He's got 3 goals and 4 assists on the week, so he's up to 36 points in 26 games this year. And Gautier's looking good, Terry's looking good, Seneca's looking good. Mason McTavish got 2 goals and 3 assists this week as well. Yeah, obviously they lost out in a close one to the Canucks, and to be fair, they absolutely blew that game against the Blackhawks. They were 3-0 up in that game and lost 5-3. Obviously, a big miss with Dostal going out injured. He's been really, really impressive this year, and Mrazek even left the game against Chicago, seemingly with a bit of an injury there. So hopefully, I really like Peter Mrazek. I think he's he's certainly capable of starting in the NHL and is a very good backup. But if Mrazek goes down as well as Dostal, that could cause them some problems. They've got Ville Husso as well as an option. But yeah, I just think they've got so much offensive production that they're always capable of beating anyone on the day.
Absolutely, and I think in this division as well, it's quite poor of a team willing to take hold and really lead from example in this division. So I think the Ducks are prime and ready to maybe pick up that mantle. sort of like the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Atlantic. Potentially they can get a bit of a lead going, a bit of a run, and also see where they get to really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So the second team in this division then, up 2 spots again, is the Los Angeles Kings. So with a record of 12, 6, and 7, they started the week with a 2-1 win against the Senators. You got me. So standby mode there. As they lost in that shootout against the Ducks before beating the Canucks in overtime. So again, a team who are putting together some results, but they're not really clear and dominant in any way, shape, or form. They're just eking out wins rather than really standing out.
Yeah, definitely. They're having a similar sort of year to Detroit in that sense, in the fact that I feel like we're coming by week to week, and the Kings are always sort of up 2 or down 2, or they've kind of picked up, they'll have picked up 5 points in 3 games like they have this week, and then they'll pick up 1 point in 4 games the next. So again, they've been a little bit sort of patchy, but hey, they find themselves 2 points off the division lead. They've got a home stint coming up with the Capitals, and then 2 games against the Blackhawks. But yeah, they're just kind of in a, like you said, they're not winning games convincingly. They're keeping it fairly tight, and we know that the Kings are quite a defensive team, and they don't necessarily have like a ton of offensive thrust. So I think you are going to see them in a lot of tight games. So, but yeah, they've definitely been another team who's been a complete slider this year, and no doubt we'll see them slide a bit more over the course of the year. I still don't think they're necessarily a playoff team in this division. I think they might kind of fall more into that wild card aspect, just because I just don't think that they have the offensive production.
Yeah, I mean, I had that thing earlier on in the season where it's going to be them or the Blues. So I think they are gonna get there, and maybe a slight contrast to you. I think the fact that they can be so defensive, they never really get blown out, which therefore means they're always going to be sort of in games. So maybe, yeah, they're not like not scoring points. They're kind of like a well-rounded sort of team. So I don't know. It is a wait and see. I don't feel strongly for or against, other than the facts that I said earlier on in like week 2, I think it was, that they're going to be in the playoffs. So I'm on the Kings bandwagon now just to make sure they get there.
Stick it a man of his convictions.
Yes, yes. Even if they are shaky takes, I've got to stand by them. Otherwise, I ain't got a backbone, have I? And talking about backbones, the third place team in this division, the Vegas Golden Knights, do they have a backbone? Or are they willing to do whatever it takes? Yeah, anyway. Not sure where I was going with that. I think you get my gist. But yeah, third place, non-mover on 30 points. Again, not an inspiring week for this team. They lost against the Mammoth 5-1, lost in the shootout against the Senators, then got smashed by the Habs 4-1, and then just scraped a victory against the Sharks 4-3. They're not quite cutting it, are they? They're there. They're still in the playoff position, but I'm not getting inspiring play from Vegas.
No, I think especially when you consider how they started the season as well. I think that a team with the roster that they have, I think we'd be expecting a lot more kind of dominance from them. But again, we're looking at a week where they haven't had a goaltending performance over 870. They've got 869, 869, 833, 857. And again, that's just not a recipe for consistently winning games in this league. Doesn't matter if you've got Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner and Thomas Hertel, Dorofeyev and Barbashev and people like that. It's kind of irrelevant when your goaltending is so shaky. They don't have a goaltender over over 900 this year. You've got Hill and Lindbaum, who've both only got 1 victory each on the season. Schmid seems to obviously be carrying the bulk of the starts, but even then still isn't quite cutting it. I think it's maybe not quite what we expected from Vegas, kind of once you factored in the start that they had.
Yeah. And they got games against the Blackhawks, Devils, and Rangers coming up, and I think Carter Hart, isn't it? That's his name, isn't it? I'm going a bit blank. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
the
Carter
goal
Hart's
controversial.
due to make his first start
Carter
against the
Hart's,
Blackhawks
yeah,
tonight, so we'll see how that
yeah.
goes.
I've been eyeing him up in fantasy, and I'm like, can I do it to
No,
myself?
mm-mm.
Because I'm thinking like he might be the player that could turn a season around playoff wise, but I think morally and just everything in Vegas and all, I just don't think I can touch. Don't think I can touch it. But yeah,
No. I mean,
it'd be
don't get
interesting
me
to see how
wrong.
well.
I'm not I'm not a kind of a massively practicing religious bloke. But I have been praying that Connor Bedard absolutely destroys Carter Hart tonight. That would be brilliant for me, and would, I think, bring that whole story right back down to earth, where it belongs. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, we'll just see what happens.
let's see what happens. Yeah, if you're gonna think you're a great team, Vegas, start playing like it, please, because I'm sick of considering you a great team when you're not performing. Um, Especially when a team who was so far at the bottom of the standings last year are only 1 point behind you when they're 27 games into the season. San Jose Sharks, the feel-good story continues. They're up one spot from fifth to fourth. Record of 13, 11, and 3. I mean, they started this week off pretty shaky, right? Again, as many teams do, losing to the Avalanche, shut out in a 6-0 loss. They did beat the Canucks 3-2 and the Mammoth 6-3 last night, but then obviously lost to the Golden Knights 4-3, as we've just talked about. This is an interesting storyline, I think, the Sharks this year. They're kind of like the Blackhawks, where they're moving up the standings from where they were last year. They're the biggest risers. It's just exciting to see, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk week after week about, how well these young guys are doing. And, you've got Macklin Celebrini on 40 points in 27 games this year. He's having an absolutely incredible season. Will Smith as well, with 5 goals and 1 assist in those 4 games. 3 games, really, if you were to discount that shutout loss against the Avalanche. Yeah, look, at some point maybe we are going to have to start considering this team to be quite good. They're getting great goaltending from Askarov. Even Nedeljkovic is backing up reasonably well. And yeah, I think they're maybe progressing a bit better than people would have been expecting. We re-ranked them into 28th, I think, just because eventually you do anticipate that maybe it would start to come apart. But look, if Celebrini and Smith, keep playing the way that they're playing, then why not? So, yeah, they've been a really interesting story this season, and be good to see where they go.
Yeah, I like them. And they're going against the Capital Stars and Hurricanes this week coming up, so they might see a bit of a poor week coming up potentially. But they're just a feel-good team. I'm not mad or upset. Even if they start losing, I'm not going to be upset. I think they've already shown some progress being made, which is always good to see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. But then what we'll do then, we'll talk about the fifth place team in this division. And when we talk about some of these teams this week having played sort of 5 games, the Seattle Kraken have only played 2 and they've lost both of them. And lost against the Stars 3-2 and the Oilers 4-0, which means they dropped 3 places. They're still on 28 points. They didn't have a single player at a point per game this week. They only scored 2 goals in the 2 games. Shaky goaltending from Decord. I don't know really what much there is to say about them this week. They've kind of sort of been absent this week.
Yeah, well, absent in both performance and actual games played as well. I mean, so I don't think we need to spend too long on them whatsoever. They've only played 2 games. Close loss to the Stars. But then, yeah, to get shut out by the Oilers, look, that can happen to anyone when the Oilers are on their A game. They are, again, capable of kind of dominating any team. But yeah, it's just been a bit of a poor couple of games from the Kraken, and obviously that season slide down the division a touch. They're on a -7 in their goal differential, but obviously they've lost 6 of that in those 2 games. So they have another game coming up against the Oilers on the 4th. They travel to Edmonton to face them again before returning home to face the Red Wings. So hopefully they'll be looking for a bit of retribution in that game against the Oilers. And then again, the Red Wings are a complete dice roll this season. So, we could be talking about them getting another couple of wins, or potentially they could fall into a bit of a loss streak.
Yeah. And either way, it probably won't be very interesting. Oh dear. We'll move on. There's no point dwelling on them. Another team that have only played 2 games this week is the aforementioned Oilers. So they remain in 6th place in this division. They played the Stars again. Well, they played the Stars. It's very similar to the Kraken this week. They both played the Stars, and then they both played each other with the Kraken. But obviously they lost to the Stars big time, 8-3. Ouch. Before coming back and beating the Kraken 4-0. So they're a very inconsistent team, I think, of the Oilers, and kind of like the Maple Leafs. They're still not cutting it, really, aren't they?
No, and as we could have predicted, we're seeing McDavid and Draisaitl having great years. I mean, look, McDavid's on 36 points in 26 games, and Draisaitl's on 31 points in 26 games. So, they're doing really, those two are doing really well. But as we tend to see with this team, that supplemental scoring just doesn't really seem to come kind of further down the lineup. They've got a bit of a home stint coming up against the Wild, the Kraken, and the Jets. So, again, could be a tricky stint for them. Obviously a bit of a rarity seeing Stuart Skinner get a shutout, and it does certainly sound from a lot of the talk around the league that Edmonton are in the market for another goalie. You've seen the likes of Jordan Binnington's name being chucked around there. I don't see how that's going to solve their problems. My personal vendetta against Jordan Binnington coming to the forefront again. And I know they've said that they're not planning on making any sort of lateral move in terms of, if they're going to go out there and get a goalie, they want someone who is going to definitively improve this team. My only concern with a team like Edmonton is they don't really have a lot of assets that they can give up if they want to go out there and get a really good goalie. I don't really think they've got the pieces to move in order to do that. But, we'll have to wait and see. I think certainly as we kind of roll into the Christmas period, I think we might see a few more trades, certainly being talked about.
Yeah. I'm kind of bored of talking about the Oilers in that sense, because it's the same old story. Like, it's the Draisaitl McDavid team. They're always going to do well, and then it's kind of like the rest. It's the same rinse repeat. Bouchard's not great defensively, the goaltending shaky. Will they, won't they make a push? Are they gonna take a step up? And they don't. So it's just kind of, for me, all a bit wishy-washy and just a bit.
Yeah, I mean,
when something changes, that's when I'll talk about them again, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're in 6th place in this division, but they are only 3 points off a playoff spot. So if they can put together a little run of wins, then they could be right in there. I just think the Wild, the Kraken, and the Jets coming up, I don't think that this little stretch of games is where they're going to find that consistency. But I stand to be corrected.
Yeah, and I feel myself at a bit of a conflict because I think this season's great in the NHL because all the divisions, for the most part, are really close. There's lots of changes. It's who's going to come out on top, and that's generally exciting. I like that. But then when we actually pinpoint down into specific teams who should be on paper miles ahead of some other teams and they're not cutting it out, it's just that frustration. Edmonton should be out front in this division, along with sort of like Vegas, really. But neither of them are kind of doing it, so it's just sort of frustrating with them. But from a holistic point of view, I think it does make for exciting watches because it's going to be a boat race all the way to the end.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, so between the Oilers in 6th place on 27 points, there is a big gap between the bottom 2 teams in this division. In 7th, remaining there on 23 points, is the 26th team in our power rankings, the Vancouver Canucks. Now, finally, we have a team who've got 3-3. fell for it a bit earlier. But they beat the Ducks 5-4, lost against the Sharks 3-2, and then lost in overtime against the Kings. So in a nice away trip into division, and he got 3 points out of 3. So you kind of be happy with that, but they are getting left behind in this division.
Yeah, they are, and we are. We're starting to see the trade conversation rumor mill ramp up. Sorry for this Vancouver team. By the sounds of it, everyone is kind of available, and that includes Quinn Hughes. I mean, I know that there's a whole load of social media body language experts, but Quinn Hughes looks kind of checked out on this team, which it's a little bit of a quandary because, again, I want to shout Jay Zawoski out at CHGO. He was talking about it in today's podcast episode that I was listening to earlier, and he made a very good point of Quinn Hughes is the captain of this team, and you're seeing him kind of checked out in December, and I don't think that's particularly a good look. I mean, look, he's an absolutely unbelievable player, but it's whether that is a personal issue with Quinn Hughes or whether or not that is just an organizational issue. I mean, we've seen issues with Brock Besser and JT Miller and Elias Pettersson and now sort of Quinn Hughes. And, it's starting to look like maybe the problem might actually just be that the Canucks is quite a dysfunctional organization. But look, they're getting cut adrift in this division now. They're 4 points behind Edmonton. They've brought up Tolopilo, who's made his first 2 starts in the NHL. Reasonable. I just think as well. I just don't think that Kevin Lankinen is a starting goaltender in this league. Obviously, they're missing Thatcher Demko, so they're having to kind of put the line share into Lankinen at the moment, and I think he's struggling. But yeah, I think just this whole team is a little bit of a mess.
Yeah. It's kind of like they had a good season a couple of seasons ago, and they're riding on that wave, and then they kind of went into a tailspin in terms of the team morale, everything like that. It was all a bit crazy. They've sort of settled things down. I feel like they're all hungover from that now. Now they're feeling it. They got tired legs. They're just not interested. Just checked out. So I do think this is a team that'll get blown up. I do think Hughes will get dealt. And they'll use that to structure a rebuild. That'll be a tough sell for the fans, getting rid of a franchise player like that. But I can't see it going any other way right now, personally.
No.
But then, sort of with them, 22 points, only a point behind now. The Calgary Flames in 8th. Again, a poor team, the Flames. They lost against the Lightning 5-1. They played the Hurricanes closely, but lost 1-0. And then they did beat the Panthers 5-3. So I don't quite understand the Flames because Wolf's a good goaltender, but he's not cutting it, and they've been moving more to Cooley now, who's actually sort of putting in better performances, but still not getting the wins as much. So they're another team that are kind of just bottom end of the league.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're currently 31st in the division. They're only 2 points better off than Nashville, but they have played 2 games more. So potentially the Preds might catch them up. But yeah, they've just been absolute cheeks all season. They are regularly cheeks of the week, and they're I think now just in a position where they're gunning for McKenna. Again, I've been seeing Kadri's name being floated around in the trade market again. I think it's pretty undeniable that he gets traded. I think he will be a really nice piece to add to a contending team. But yeah, really interesting to see them switch more to Cooley over the last couple of games, and kind of seemingly with quite a good kind of outcome. Yeah, they're just poor. I mean, we don't really kind of need to labour the point, but I mean, you look at, they've got Morgan Frost and Matt Coronato, and Rasmus Anderson had obviously an electric week last week, wasn't he? Got 9 points on the week, and obviously Kadri's a decent player, and they're just not finding it this year. But they do have some nice kind of young pieces, and if they want to sell off a few more of their veteran pieces and go kind of full tank mode, then I think they will. I just think the only struggle is going to be when they're looking to sell guys off is with the depth of this year's draft. It is kind of being regarded as quite a strong draft class in terms of, even the guys in the top 10, you could be getting some really good picks kind of around 7th, 8th, ninth. I think a lot of teams are going to be really apprehensive of letting their first round picks go for this year's draft. So we'll just have to see what happens. But this year's turning into a write-off for Calgary, and I think that they're just happy to float down as far as they can and rebuild for the years ahead.
The final point on the Flames for me is that they seem, in a bizarre move, they've tied down all their sort of management team down for several more years, the GM, all the execs, etc. So that the owner's happy with where the team's going, seemingly, and they're trusting the management to manage this rebuild, which, looking at their past seasons, I'm kind of a bit surprised at personally. I thought they might have used this as an opportunity to get some fresh blood in to lead them into the future, but that's not how it's happened.
No. They're going to ride the hand that they have and see how that goes.
Yeah. Right, we'll head out back east to the Metropolitan Division this time. So, first place in this division now, staying there, cemented their position to the Carolina Hurricanes. They played 3 games this week. They started out with a 4-2 loss against the Rangers before beating the Jets 5-1, and then the Flames in overtime 1-0. So, yeah, that was a bit of a weird game. But yeah, cementing themselves as a decent team, the Carolina Hurricanes, as expected.
Yeah, absolutely. We say kind of week in, week out that they're kind of like they're the Avalanche with the ads still on. They're a good team. They are a solid team, and they've got 34 points on the year. They're looking good. They just don't do it with the same gusto that some of the more dominant teams do. But look, Seth Jarvis has got 4 goals on the week, Aho with 3 assists, and Shea Gostisbehere as well with a goal and 3 assists. One of the best names in the NHL. Shutout for Brandon Bussey as well. He's played 8 games this year and got seven victories and a shutout. So he's been really impressive this year. I've been a big fan of the Bussy. But look, they come up this week ahead with the Maple Leafs, the Predators, and the Sharks coming up. So again, I could see them picking up some more victories in there, and kind of continuing their role at the top of this division.
Yeah. Is this the end of Freddie Anderson, do you think? Like all the other 2 keepers, Bussy and Kochetkov, have performed remarkably better than Anderson this year. Obviously, I'm not sure whether they're saving Anderson for the harder matchups potentially, but stats wise, he's not cutting it.
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, look, he's 36 now, is Anderson. So, maybe he has a couple more years left, but I think in terms of his time as an NHL starter, I think we could be seeing that whittle down.
Yeah. Which is a shame. He's had a stellar career. But we'll move on to the second team in this division on 33 points. And I think these 2 are potentially making a break for it, although looking at it, this is the closest division of them all. But the second place team is the New Jersey Devils. So they're one of the teams that played 5 games this week. And they started off strong with 3 wins. Against the Red Wings 4-3, the Blues in overtime 3-2, and then the Sabres 5-0. They come a bit unstuck in the last 2 games against the Flyers and the Blue Jackets, losing both of them 5-3. They're still getting decent point production without Jack Hughes in the lineup, but they're making good progress. They're a good team, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And we said when Hughes went down that this was a really good opportunity for Nico Hischier to step up and be the guy. He's got 4 goals and 5 assists in those 5 games, so he's had a great week. Timo Meier as well with 4 goals and 3 assists. Obviously Jake Allen getting the shutout, which is glorious for Matt's fantasy team. They're managing to keep themselves up there, aren't they, in Hughes' absence? So they'll be really happy with that. They won't have been happy, obviously, to lose those games to the Flyers and the Blue Jackets. Obviously, with them being interdivisional rivals, that's a bit of a problem, and I'm sure they wouldn't have wanted those. But they've got a couple of home games coming up against the Stars and the Golden Knights, and then they travel to the Bruins. So not an easy stretch of the next 3 games for the Devils. We'll kind of have to see how they do. But yeah, as it stands at the moment, they're riding right the way up there with Carolina. So, but it is a tight division, so we could see them again. They could be another yo-yo slider.
Yeah, absolutely. And case in point in that is a third team in this division, the Washington Capitals. Yep, up 4 from last week, 2 weeks ago. They're bottom of this division. But here they are now, sat on 32 points. So we've had 34, 33, and now 32. The Capitals have played 4 games and won every single one of them. And from what I've seen of the Capitals, they've pretty much dominated every single game they played this week as well. They're on a plus 19 on the season. So, I mean, I think I was leaning to sort of bad-mouthing them a bit last week and thinking they're the team that in this jumble sale of well, not jumble sale, but this jumbo division, that everyone's going to get left behind. But yeah, they proved me wrong.
Yeah, and look, we had them ranked as the 27th team in our power rankings when we updated them. They'd been really disappointing, all season. But, when you go and score 17 goals in 4 games, you're always going to be putting yourself in a position to win night in, night out. Tom Wilson got 4 goals and 4 assists in that little stretch. Ovechkin with 2 goals and 3 assists as well. And, we are still seeing Ovechkin with more assists than goals, albeit by 1. But yeah, a bit of a rarity. I mean, he's got the goal scoring record now, so he can now just set other guys up, can't he? But yeah, great week for them, getting all four wins. They started their road trip with that 4-1 victory against the Islanders. They now face the Kings, the Sharks, and the Ducks in that classic Cali road trip before returning home to face the Blue Jackets. So again, we'll just have to kind of see how they do. I mean, they kind of seem to have figured it out a bit, so we'll just see if they can keep it going. But they could equally fall right back down. I don't know. They're a bit of an enigmatic team at the moment at the Caps.
Yeah, they are. I think their top lines are doing great. You got Chikrin with 4 goals in the week. Because I got Chikrin and Carlson in the top 4 scorers. But like for Chikrin, he's got 10 goals, 13 assists on the season. That's forward type stats, not defense. And he got Thompson and Lindgren, probably one of the up there for the best sort of tandem in the league. Thompson's having a fantastic year, making a big push for the Olympics. I think that'll be a big decision later down the line. So I think again they're flip flopping. I'm kind of feel bad from how I talked about them last week because right now I'm feeling like they could go on a bit of a run and do well and make a push for the playoffs again. But again, they're probably going to lose the games next week, and I'll be eating my words and flip flopping. So we'll see where we get.
Yeah,
and
you make a great point. I really like Jacob Chikrin. I think he's a great defenseman, and could end up being if he keeps playing the way he's playing, you could be talking about an outside candidate for the Norris Trophy maybe if he keeps playing this way. He's closing in on a point per game kind of pace at the moment with 23 and 16. He's on a plus 19 as well, which leads the team. So yeah, great player. Yeah, big fan of Jacob Chikrin.
Yeah. Right. Well, moving to then the 4th place team. They're up 1 spot, 31 points now. This team, so it's a nice little trend of 34, 33, 32, 31. Pittsburgh Penguins. Okay, so they're the 10th team in our power rankings. They've got Tristan Jarry back, who knew he was such a game changer. But they played 4 games this week. They've won 3 of them and lost 1. They beat the Sabres 4-2 to start off the week before going away to Columbus and beating them in overtime 4-3. They had a bit of an off night against the Maple Leafs, losing 7-2, but then went to Philly and in a Pennsylvania derby smashed the Flyers 5-1. So yeah, what do you think of the Penguins week? They're doing kind of still outperforming expectations, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. They're still, performing way better than anyone could have expected, and a really good bounce back victory after losing that game to the Maple Leafs. 7-2. That was a bit of an ugly night, really. But yeah, to come back against the Flyers and ultimately leapfrog them in the division, and obviously we'll come on to the Flyers next. But yeah, I think what we're seeing from is potentially Sidney Crosby on course for his best goal scoring year in his career at the ripe old age of 38. So I mean, look, Crosby is just unbelievable, isn't he? And we even going back to before the season started, and we did our mini pod episode on what a rebuild could look like for the Penguins. Sorry, we made the point that as long as Sidney Crosby's on that team, they're going to remain competitive. So they are doing exactly that. And, he's having a really, really good year. Evgeny Malkin as well is also kind of dialing back the clock a little bit. And, I think they're just going to try and roll with it as much as possible. Do I think they're a playoff team? I think it's a little bit too early to say. I mean, this division is separated from top to bottom by 5 points. So, it's a really tough one. But they've had a reasonable week and a nice little bit of a bounce back following their kind of slide.
Yeah, well, it is such an exciting division. I think the Metro, because you got the top two for me, the Hurricanes and the Devils. You got the Capitals making a push. Are they going to be the top three teams? Potentially what we kind of expected heading into the year. But then you got such a dogfight for any remaining wildcard teams. I think I saw a stat that every team in the Eastern Conference is at a 500 plus um, in sort of record. So yeah, really weird times in this division, but exciting at the same time. But you sort of spoilt the fun of it, I guess, depending on how much you take from that. But the fifth team are the Philadelphia Flyers. They've had a bit of a mixed week. I think they've won 3 and lost 2. Beat the Islanders in the shootout, so sort of fairly balanced record. But what do you think make of the Flyers week?
Yeah, they're sticking around, and that is every team in this division. They are sticking around in there. But yeah, they've been pretty decent. Getting some wins, some losses. Obviously, lost to the Lightning with the way they've been playing. Maybe not that unexpected, but then victories against the Panthers, Islanders, and Devils is a good one. And a nice week for Matvei Michkov as well, with 3 goals and an assist there as well. So good to see him, have a decent week after I know we kind of shit talked him last week. So clearly he got the PBP bounce.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think this team could beat anyone on their day, could lose to anyone on their day. They're kind of a bit like a fill-in team in this league, a fill-in. Might coin something out of that. But no, they're doing all right. They'll be thereabouts. They're not going to be making any sort of great stances in the playoffs for me. I don't think they're going to be, like a Stanley Cup contender. But they could scrape in as a wild card and lose in the first round. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me with this team.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I completely agree. But again, we're looking at a team in the 5th place in the division with they're still in the plus column in the plus minus on the season. So, this is a really, really interesting division. It's shaping out really, really exciting.
Yeah, and it all goes to show that New York Islanders were in 2nd place last week and now down to 6th. Having played 3 games, they've lost every single one, albeit to the Flyers in a shootout. It's just not really been that competitive this week. It's a bit of a change from last week. It's up and down. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah,
but they're on 29 points. Yeah,
they're what 13, 10 and 3 on the season now. And look, okay, you've had another productive week from Matty Schaefer with a goal and 3 assists, and I think everyone's really liking Schaefer for the Calder Trophy this year. I really like watching him play. He's another one of those guys that we spoke about it last week. How you have quick players and then you have guys who visibly look fast when you're watching them, and I don't know if it's a combination of their kind of actual leg speed and power, along with kind of how good they are on the edges of their skates. But I find Schaefer a really fascinating player to watch because he's one of those guys who does have kind of separating speed on the ice. So, but yeah, the Islanders are another team with some kind of consistency issues. Kind of winning a few, losing a few, winning a few. They've been streaky. But look, Schaefer's having a good year. Horvat's having a good year. Matt Barzal is still fit. So again, I will take that to the grave for me week after week that we are keeping Matt Barzal on the ice until he breaks. So it's again, they're sixth in this division, but 4 points off the top.
4 points off the top. They're kind of like the pure 500 team. They're on a -1, 13, 10 and 3. So essentially 13, 13. Epitome of mid potentially, but what is a big loss is Palmieri. I know you saw that play. It sort of gets in a contest behind the net. He kind of sort of falls over, twists awkwardly on his knee. He's torn his ACL. You can see he's in pain straight away. He's got himself up and he's sort of skating himself to the bench, trying to get off to get a new player on the ice. And there's a Capital defenseman just stood there with the puck, waiting to recycle it, and he pokes it off him, passes it straight to a teammate who goes and scores. What a player that was! He's got an assist when he's got a torn ACL.
Yeah, and look, hockey players for me, best athletes in the world, and that, I think that just goes to show the freak nature of them. That we've seen him tear his ACL. He looks to be in an excruciating level of pain. And he's kind of hobbling his way back, back to the bench, but will just strip the puck off the defenseman. And I think it was Heineman, who got the goal on that play. So yeah, amazing for him to to pick up that pick up that assist. It was a great play, and obviously he's going to be out for the rest of the year, which is a big loss for the Islanders. And just wish him as well as a recovery as you can have. Obviously, it's such a difficult injury. But the Islanders as a whole, they've got both their goaltenders still just at the crest of 900 on the save percentage for the year. Sorokin and Rittich are kind of keeping them in some form of contention. But they are, like you said, 13 wins, 13 losses, very middling.
So, moving on then to the 7th place team, up a spot from last week, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Again, a bit of a mystery team for me. They started out with a 5-1 loss to the Capitals. They then lost 2 overtime games on the bounce, Maple Leafs and the Penguins. And then came out and beat the Devils away from home 5-3. You got Werenski leading the scoring this week, 2 goals, 3 assists. So 5 points in these 4 games. He leads the team in points by quite some margin, really. Obviously, with Marchenko being out, that might be indicative of that. So it's a bit, again, in this jumbo division where everyone's having up and down weeks, etc. I think Columbus are falling right into that same stereotype.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Marchenko's a massive loss for this team. He's a really, really good player, great finisher of the puck as well. But they've got Zach Werenski, who, again, when we spoke about Jacob Chychrun potentially being like an outsider for the for the Norris Trophy, I think you could see Zach Werenski being right in there amongst it. I mean, in terms of defensemen in the league, he's second only to Cale Makar in points so far. They've both got 9 goals, but Werenski's got 17 assists, whilst Makar has 23. So you've currently got Werenski and Adam Fox tied for second in scoring for defensemen. So I think that just goes to highlight how good of a player he is, and I really, really like him as a player, and he's a great leader in this Columbus team. They've got a home game coming up against the Red Wings before they go on the road to the Panthers and the Capitals. So, you could see them potentially get a win or 2 out of that. But again, as we've said, they're 4 points off of the division lead. So we could see some absolutely massive movement over the next week, and see how everything shapes out.
Absolutely. We'll move into the last team in this division then, and if you haven't worked out already, it is the New York Rangers down a spot. They're set on 28 points. Now they've had a fairly good week, despite the fact they've dropped a spot. It looks like they've 3 wins and a loss. They beat the Blues, Hurricanes, and Bruins before losing to the Lightning. Fox leading the show with 7 assists, so he's now gone on to long-term injury reserve. Shesterkin's still putting in good performances, playing every single game this week, and every single one above a 900 percentage. But they just seem to be a bit a weird team this year.
Yeah, really, really weird. Yeah, I mean, they're able to beat the Blues at the Garden, so they'll take a home win. But yeah, that's where they've just been. I mean, they've been a better road team this year than they have been at home. And look, they lost that game to the Lightning 4-1. But with the week the Lightning have had and the way that they've managed to kind of click it all together, again, kind of no issues there. But beating the Bruins 6-2, beating the Hurricanes 4-2, really, really good performances. And obviously Fox going on to LTIR is going to be a huge loss. But Artemi Panarin as well with 2 goals and 4 assists. He's at 26 points in 27 games now. So you look at the New York Rangers, they're bottom of this division in 8th place. They're on a +1 goal plus minus for the season. And they're only 5 points off the top of the division. So it's an absolutely crazy division. They've got a home game coming up against the Dallas Stars before going on the road to face the Senators, and then they have back-to-back games at home against the Avalanche and the Golden Knights. So that's going to be a tricky run of games for the Rangers, especially with how they performed at home this year. If I think with the potential loss of Fox as well, I think that's going to be a tricky week coming up for them.
Yeah, it is, but who knows with this team whether they're just going to turn around and just smash every single game just to prove us wrong. But this is what the Metro is. It's a really exciting division this year, and who knows what's going to happen. And that's why we love the sport so much, really, I think. But we'll move into what we say is the best division in hockey, certainly in terms of where the best teams play is definitely where they are, even though it's not as close a run, which is why they sort of moved to the bottom of our rundown this week. But the Central Division, first place team in the league, the Colorado Avalanche, the absolute juggernaut, 42 points, so they're absolutely leading out by the front. They've still only lost 1 in regulation, on a +48 on the season. They are just absolute machines.
They're making a mockery of the league this year. And like you say, with 1 regulation loss, I mean, yeah, okay, they've lost 7 games in total on the season, but obviously they've still picked up an additional 6 points, which makes all the difference. And you look at Nathan MacKinnon with 3 goals and 4 assists in those 3 games. Blackwood with another shutout. I mean, their goaltenders this year have just been, really, really good. The double wood. And then, they had that shootout loss to the Wild, which snapped that winning streak, which was, a great night for you. And then obviously went and absolutely smashed the Habs. So look, they've got the Canucks coming up at home before they go on the road to the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Flyers. So I think they could be in pole position to absolutely wipe the floor with that run. And I don't think they need to change a thing at the moment. Martin Natchez is on 33 points in 25 games. You've got Cale Makar, who's I think potentially a shoe-in for the Norris Trophy, and even you've got like Arturi Lehkonen with 24 points in 25 games. And just looking at the plus minus of some of these top 5 scorers, so you've got McKinnon, Natchez, Makar, Lehkonen, and Brock Nelson as well. McKinnon's on a +30, Nate's on a +24, Makar on a +29, Lehkonen on a +25, and Nelson on a +14, which is just ludicrous. And I said last week they could be on for potentially for a record-breaking season, and they're just absolutely steamrolling it.
Yeah, absolutely are. It's just it is crazy to watch, and we're gonna have a discussion soon about award winners and things like that. And I just think this team is just gonna sweep the lot for me. I can't see it changing. They're not going to suddenly drop off. They're doing it in a division with lots of tough teams. It's just crazy to watch. Every game's kind of fun. It's great for me because I've got Natchez and Lekanen on my fantasy team, so they're both coming in with some decent depth scoring for me in terms of where I drafted these players as well. So they're just a joy to watch, really. Nothing else to really say about it.
Yeah, quick question before we move on. Obviously, the Boston Bruins they set the record in the 22-23 season with 135 points before they then got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, which was hilarious. 65, 12, and 5 on the season. Do you think that the Colorado Avalanche can top that this year?
I think they could. Will they? I don't know. I mean, at this point, they're doing so well, they might just sort of slow themselves down. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily think they should do that. I think they should just continue steamrolling and carry that momentum through. But absolutely, it is in their grasp for how they're performing because they don't even seem to be having an off night. They lost against the Wild this week, and I was going to save my thoughts for that for when we talked about the Wild. But it wasn't like they had a bad night. They were still playing the same style of how they play, and it just didn't work out for them that game. I think the Wild put in an absolutely great performance,
Yeah,
but they're just absolutely they're just steamrolling teams. It's just no competition. Nobody seems to be up at that level really, apart from the second place team in this division who seems to be putting it together. But even then, like they're not going to play the Dallas Stars all that often, so they're just going to keep on going. Like the Canucks, Islanders, Rangers, and Flyers. Like I don't even think any of them stand a chance to get against this team.
no, and you've currently got. I was just having a quick look whilst you were speaking there, just on Elite Prospects, which is always a brilliant source of kind of stats and stat projections and stuff. Nathan McKinnon's currently projected to have a 145-point season, um, which is just silly. Yeah, we'll see how he gets on there.
Yeah, let's see some records get broken. Let's go. Um, but yeah, we touched on them already. The second place team in this division, second place team in our power rankings, the Dallas Stars. 4 games, 4 wins. Oilers, Kraken, Mammoth, Senators, all kind of smashed them out of the park as well in every single game for the most part. You got Johnston with 9 points in 4 games, Robertson with 7 points in 2 games. You just got goals galore, decent goaltending. I'm eating my words on this team. They're putting it all together. They're on 38 points. So again, they're streaking ahead from any other team in the league. But it's just a shame they're in the same division as the Avalanche. But when it
Yeah,
comes down to it, I think when it comes into playoffs, they're still going to get in the playoffs, and they've still got a chance as any to go on that run that they've been looking for so desperately.
yeah. I mean, they find themselves second in the entire NHL with with 38 points, and they're 4 points back from the Avalanche, but they're also 4 points ahead of any of the next team. Obviously, you've got the Lightning and the Hurricanes on 34 points. So they would be having a fantastic year had it not been for the for the Colorado Avalanche. But yeah, look, they've absolutely figured it out, haven't they? And 4 wins on the week. They've got the Rangers, the Devils, the Sharks, and the Penguins coming up. So again, I think with the way that this team's playing at the moment, they're potentially on course for a really really a really good week and a really good year. You're looking at Jason Robertson with 35 points in 26 games. Jason Robertson's due a contract at the end of the year. Will they? Won't they? But even if they do decide that ultimately Robertson doesn't fit in to their cap space, their cap management, that sort of thing, if you make the decision that you're going to trade Jason Robertson, you are going to get a boatload in return.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're a really good placed team. So I can't really argue with how they're doing this year. I've got to hold hands up and say, yeah, they're a good team as much as I hate the Stars. Um, now there's a big gap between them and the third place team, 5 points gap, in fact. But this team, they're a bit of an island as we talk about the fourth place team because they're 6 points ahead of fourth place. But the Minnesota Wild, what a change in this season from where we were a few weeks ago. Um, to where we are now. But they did bleat your Blackhawks 4-3 in overtime, and I'm sure you got some things to say about that game. But as you mentioned, they beat the Avalanche in a shootout, and I watched that game start to finish, and that was one of the best games of the season. It's back and forth hockey, not many interruptions, just great, great. Just great play. Great goaltending by both. Wallstead is really putting himself forward as the next big goalkeeper for me. When the Wild moved from Fleury to sort of Gustafsson and expected Gustafsson to break out, and he's still a very solid goaltender, but Wallstead is stealing all the plaudits right now. Kaprizov's getting him with 5 goals this week and everything else. I think I'm feeling good about my Wild team.
Yeah, and I think that it's reminding me a lot of, again, when we just going back to that 22-23 Boston team when they had they had Swayman and Ullmark that were just, it basically had 2 1A goaltenders. And they seem to have that in Gustafsson and Wallstedt, and that I think has been the absolute key to this resurgence. Again, Minnesota being another team benefiting from the penalty box perspective bump. Ever since you spoke to Seth about them, they've absolutely rocketed up the standings, and they're playing really well. Kaprizov with another 5 goals in these 3 games. Yeah, look, frustrating as a Blackhawks fan. With that overtime win, particularly just from the officiating, I thought that the call on Mikheyev for interference, I thought it was a ridiculous call. But look, they made it count when you're playing 4-on-3 in overtime. The space that opens up is massive, and Kaprizov finds himself with the space, and you just can't give someone of that quality that much space. So, he clutched up in that moment and got the win. But I think Minnesota are looking absolutely fantastic, and providing everyone stays healthy and the goaltenders keep performing as they perform, then I think that third playoff spot could be theirs for the taking. Obviously, they're on a road stint coming up next against the Oilers, the Flames, and the Canucks. I think with the way that those teams are playing at the moment, I don't see any reason why Minnesota can't carry it on.
Yeah, I'm still a bit hesitant. They're definitely not on the levels of the Avs and the Stars, and they've been a bit fortunate with other teams that we'd expect in this division making a push to sort of drop off a little bit. So though I'm really happy and really excited and hope it continues, there's also that bit of pessimism to say, well, we're not quite smashing teams. We're in every game and we're losing by sort of 1 or 2 goals, or we win by 1 or 2 goals for the most part. But I am a happy Wild fan right now, and so I'm not going to complain.
No.
But
Well, the rest of the division's kind of the best of the rest, so to speak. So we'll kind of whiz through these remaining few teams. I mean, you got Chicago coming up next, who are up 2 spots on 27 points, find themselves a couple of points out of a wild card spot, with 3 points in 3 games. Another one for you there, Nathaniel. Whee! But yeah, they had that overtime loss to the Wild, a really disappointing loss to Nashville 4-3, which was just a really frustrating game. And then they kicked that losing streak with a 5-3 victory against the Ducks, which, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Anaheim, Chicago were 3-0 down in that game, and came back to win 5-3. So really, really good comeback performance for them. Bedard up to 37 points in 25 games on the season. He got 3 goals and 3 assists, including 4 points in that game against Anaheim. So he's still performing absolutely unbelievably. Really good to have Tyler Bertuzzi back in the lineup as well, and nice to see Burakovsky come back in as well. They go up on a road stint to Vegas, back-to-back games against the Kings and then the Ducks. So that, again, they find themselves kind of out in California and Nevada. But yeah, do you have anything on Chicago really?
I still like this team. You've had a bit rough shakes for it, but the progress has been made. The step up Bedard's had in becoming the uh, him sort of stomping the league, I think, and good goaltending tonight, even though they may not have had that great a week this week. I just think it's a nice team to support at the moment at the Blackhawks. No, there's a chance that they could push for the playoffs. They might not get there for me, maybe this year, but still, it is great, and I feel good for you that your team's making progress. Really,
Yeah, yeah, and look, no one expected this team to be a playoff team this year. Everyone, every analyst, every writer had them right down the bottom of the league, so they are still massively outperforming. I think they finished on like 61 points or something last year, and they're projected to or somewhere in the 60s, but the projected points wise, they're going to be right up there in the in the 80s, which is a massive improvement. And credit to Jeff Blashill as well for for finding a way to make this team work. And you've got Connor Bedard projected for about 121 points this season, which would again be a ridiculous improvement. And he's really come to the fore this season. So yeah, I'm still really happy moving forward and finally being able to get excited about Chicago games again.
yeah. So the fifth team in this division, it's not the Winnipeg Jets. It's the Utah Mammoth, down one spot. They played 5 games this week. The Mammoth, they beat the Golden Knights 5-1 to start it, and then have gone on a bit of a losing streak, losing against the Habs, Stars, Blues, and Sharks. So I think the wheels are falling off from the good momentum start that they had to this year, and they're falling back exactly where we were sort of placed them in this division. I do think, projecting wise, I think they're going to be fighting the Blackhawks for a potential wild card spot potentially come the end of the year. Obviously, depending on what the Jets do next. But they've got games against the Ducks, Canucks, and Flames, so a 6-game away trip at least for them. So yeah, bit cooling off in Utah.
Yeah, it's been a disappointing week for them. I mean, they've 3 of those 4 losses, they were right in it. 4-3 loss against the Habs, 4-3 loss against the Stars, 1-0 loss to the Blues, and then obviously kind of lost 6-3 to the Sharks in a bit more of a kind of convincing loss in that regard. But yeah, Vamelka and Vanacek have not had a great week. And that's, I think, been a real kind of crucial point. And that they also don't have any player above a point per game average this season, which look, that is if you've got any player who's playing at a 82-point pace, that's really good. But yeah, it's just been a poor week for them. And like you said, they've got the Ducks, Canucks, and the Flames coming up, so potentially they have the games coming up to be able to get back in the win column. But yeah, it's just been a bit of a skid back down to reality, I think, this year.
Yeah. Right behind the Utah Mammoth on 26 points is these Winnipeg Jets, who, I mean, you can tell that they're struggling because they held a players-only meeting this week following their most recent loss against the Buffalo Sabres. But they lost against the Capitals 4-3, lost against the Hurricanes 5-1, did beat the Preds 5-2, but then lost to the Sabres 5-1. So pretty convincing losses there, all away from home. The players are kind of putting in sort of a point per play, point per game, sort of Velarde, Connor, Shafley this week. But I think they're really suffering from the loss of Hellebuck.
Big time. Big time. I mean, they've had Comrie and Milic playing this week. But yeah, I mean, you lose your Hart Trophy caliber goaltender, and yeah, the wheels do come off a little bit. And look, this Jets team's still really, really good, but let's not hide away from the fact that they are backstopped by the best goaltender in the league, and when you lose him for that 4 to 6 week period, that's really tough. They've got the Habs coming up on the road. You've then got the Sabres at home. They'll be looking for a massive turnaround there, and then they go on the road to the Oilers. So, it kind of remains to be seen what the Jets are going to do. But Yeah, they are struggling at the moment. But again, they do have the players capable of the offensive production. They just need a bit more solid goaltending and defense.
Yeah. 26 points. And then they played one game less than the Wild, for example, but they're 7 points behind, so they really need to pull their fingers out if they really want to make that push for the playoffs, because they could easily get cut adrift and end up in a dogfight with sort of the Blackhawks and the Mammoth for any potential wildcard spot takings. But yeah, we'll move on. Last two teams in this division. I don't propose we go into too much detail. That being said, the St. Louis Blues are only 1 point. Yeah, so yeah, they played 5 games this week. The Blues, they've won 2, lost 2, and an overtime loss. I mean, minus 26. They're not going anywhere this season. They've lost Snuggerud for 6 weeks, and they got another away trip against the Bruins, Senators, and the Habs. Have you got anything more to say about the Blues, really?
No, I mean, obviously they've had really poor goaltending all season, but Joel Hoffa did get that shutout against the Mammoth. But yeah, I think is this our first 5 points in 5 games of the season? The first 5 in 5. Yeah,
Five in
but
five in five.
it's yeah, decent week for Rob Thomas as well, getting in that getting a goal and 3 assists. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't think this team's going anywhere in a hurry. Certainly not this year. Again, I keep seeing Jordan Kyrie's name being floated around in the trade rumors. I think that potentially he could be someone who could be on the move. I would love Chicago to get Jordan Kyrie. I say this all the time, but I think he's an awesome player, and would really complement that top line with Bedard. But yeah, I think they're a team struggling, and I think as we get through it, I think there'll be a team with one eye on the draft, looking at how they can reload.
Yeah. And the last team we're going to cover, the Nashville Predators, 20 points on the season, and but I don't really want to talk about them that much. They've a lot of high scoring games. Lost against the Panthers 8-3, beat the Red Wings 6-3, beat the Blackhawks 4-3 in that weird game, and then lost to the Jets 5-2. Lots of sort of players chickening with points, but it doesn't seem to be getting them anywhere. I think they're in a dogfight for Gavin McKenna pick for me.
Yeah, yeah, big time. I mean, look, a really good week for Luke Evangelista, with 2 goals and 5 assists. He's a great young player, and I like him a lot. I'm sure he was glad to. I'm glad he was able to, get that new contract sorted at the start of the year, and I think that he's someone who Nashville will look to be kind of a corner piece of that rebuild if that's what they decide to do. But I think that the Predators they're gonna go into fire sale mode. I think they took a gamble on a lot of these veterans. They took a gamble on the likes of Stamkos and Marcia and Brady Shea and the likes of those, and obviously they got Ryan O'Reilly as well. I think it could be another situation where you see everyone in Nashville pretty much being available. Yeah, they're bottom of the standings. They're not going anywhere. They are poor, really poor, which was a bit surprising. I think we thought they'd maybe have a bit of a bounce back, but yeah, they've been shocking.
Yeah. Right. We'll cover off the top scorers of this week then, and then we'll obviously move on out of here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's cover this then. So the top goal scorer for the week is Kucherov with 10 points. Wyatt Johnston and Hisha following up on 9. Hagel leading the goal scoring charts this week with 6, with Crosby, Smith, Johnson, and Cooley coming in with 5. And the player with the most penalty minutes for the Penalty Boss Perspective Award is Logan Stanley with 23 minutes. How that reflects to in the season. The top point scorer is McKinnon with 44, with the Young Guns Celebrini on 40 and Bedard on 37, following up behind. And top joint goal scorer, Nathan McKinnon and Morgan Geeky for Richard. Because we're following up. And despite Mikko Rantanen not really getting any penalty minutes this week, he's still at the top with 57 minutes on the year. So with that in mind, do you want to sign us off and we'll go?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as always, guys, you can find us on both X and Instagram at the PBP podcast. You can also get in touch with us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com. If you've got any comments, feedback, anything along those lines, or anything that you anything you want to let us know about the show. As I said last week, well, we're now officially in December. This is the festive season and the season of giving. Why don't you go ahead and give us a 5-star review? That would mean masses to us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Moves us kind of up the algorithm and lets people know that you like the content that me and Nathaniel are producing here. As I said, when we hit 500 streams on the podcast, I will do a picture in my incredibly small Jordan Mailata jersey. So there is your incentive. But yeah, no, as always, guys, thanks for being on the ride with us, and really appreciate you being with us. We'll be back with a mini pod on Friday before returning for another fanatical week of NHL action next week.
Yeah. Well, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.